Hi, welcome back to Less Stress for You and I. This episode we will be dealing with mass incarceration. This episode is starting off with the well-being of children in the United States. How the United States performs in recent international rankings. Two sets of international rankings were recently issued. One from the UNICEF, Child Well-Being in Rich Countries, and the other from the World Economic Forum, the Global Competitiveness Report, 2012-2013. The United States ranks 26 overall for child well-being. This overall rank includes 26 for material well-being, 28 for child poverty rates, 25 for health and safety, 26 for infant mortality rates, 26 for low birth rate, 22 for immunization rates, 27 for educational well-being, 27th for preschool enrollment rates, number 25 for participants in further education, number 16 for educational advancement by the age of 15, number 29 for the overall overweight, number 2 for exercise, number 29 for teen pregnancy rates, number 1 for alcohol. The United States received the top rank for absence of drunkenness, number 4 for smoking, again absence, number 11 for fighting, number 12 for being bullied, number 23 for housing, number 27 for homicide, number 3 for lack of air pollution, number 23 for child self-reported life satisfaction, and number 28 for relationships with parents and peers. The top ranked countries for child well-being overall in order are number 1, the Netherlands, number 2, Norway, number 3, Iceland, number 4, Finland, number 5, Sweden, number 6, Germany, number 7, Luxembourg, number 8, Switzerland, number 9, Belgium, number 10, Ireland. Can we as Americans have our legislators invest in our communities? This was a report from a Huffington Post report.com. Thank you very much. And if you have any suggestions for us, please contact us at morrismorris910yahoo.com.
Thank you, Jimmy. Greetings and welcome to another episode of Less Stress for You and I. We have a very special episode for you today. We're here with Dr. Mirza Baig. Did I pronounce that correctly,
Yes.
sir? I didn't want to slander your name. Dr. Baig is a psychiatrist, yes?
Yes.
Who focuses on a couple of different disciplines, one being mass incarceration and the effects thereof on society, yes?
Yes.
Okay. And also brain development. I would like to, if I may, touch on the first, or rather the second subject of brain development. What exactly could you tell us about that and what does that mean?
Yes. So basically, part of our background and our training, well, our education in becoming a physician and focusing on treating mental health illness is understanding why that happens. And the brain, you know, it's our noggin, it's how we think and act, it's what makes us different from animals, but also kind of similar to them too.
Okay.
So brain development means what happens, all the way from the fetus up to adulthood and beyond that, how does the brain change over time?
Now, noggin, is that a medical expression?
No, it is
No,
not.
okay, I'm sorry. So when you mean change, okay, I've heard it said that a teenager thinks differently from an adult. Could you explain what the process of that is and why that is?
Absolutely. Some of us can recall from our teenage years, or what was it like for your children's teenage years. You know, it was kind of a little bit wilder than the other ages.
Absolutely.
You know, harder, more hormones and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason for that.
And the reason would be?
The brain actually doesn't fully develop until actually quite a bit later in life. We used to think, well, you know, at a very, very young age, very, very young, that we stop having new neurons, meaning brain cells. There's stuff that, you know, kind of they talk to each other, and they're what make the brain go, brain cells.
Okay.
You know, so you kind of have like cells of the liver, or you've got different kinds of cells in the stomach. The brain has its own type of special cells called neurons.
Okay.
So, you know, very, very early on, we stop having new brain cells. And I mean, we're talking like around infancy, a very young age. And so what happens over time is, though, we still have maturation and the organization of the brain, the connections between the brain, the individual places, and those functions develop over time. So even though from a very early time we stop having new neurons, we never get them back or make new ones, they actually continue to mature and develop.
So basically, what I hear you saying, and you please correct me if I'm wrong, I hear you saying that the palette is full of all the colors that it's going to have. Maturation is about refining, reshuffling, redistribution.
Yes.
I got that right?
Yes, the brain is organizing itself. It's developing each of those colors, if you will.
Sure.
And also developing those connections between the different colors.
Is there an age that is estimated that adolescents start acting like adults? Or is there an age mark or benchmark that goes, you shouldn't be acting this way anymore because you're an adult now?
More or less there kind of is. So it's sort of like a spectrum or a continuum, you know. So, you know, we used to think, and then we used to think that maybe at 10 or 11 years of age, we used to think that, you know, children could start to make their own choices.
Okay.
And then, you know, for many years in the legal system, you know, we have 18 as a sort of cutoff.
Mm-hmm.
But the brain does not stop maturing and developing until the late 20s, mid 20s to late 20s, even 30 years old with some evidence.
Okay. And that has nothing to do with the retardation of development? That's just a natural development that it will take that long to reach full maturation?
Yes.
Wow.
Now we've actually have our thinking part of the brain. You know, I mentioned that how we're different from animals. Well, we've got this part called the cortex, and it's like the outer part of our brain.
Okay.
And there's the front half of the brain that's the part, the outer front part of the brain. That's what makes us very unique from animals. It's a lot thicker, it's better organized, the connections, you know, it's different. That's what really sets us apart. And what we know now is that this is actually, these connections, the frontal lobes, this front part of the brain that allows us to think, plan, do things, you know, control impulses. It's actually one of the last parts of the brain to develop.
I'm Melvin Carter from Save Our Sons.
I'm here today with a 28-year veteran of the St. Paul Police Department, Melvin Carter Jr.
We have policing. It's not a situation of police having stats. How many convictions did you get, and how many tags did you write? I got more accolades and commendations from people that really thought I had gone the extra mile to help them to solve whatever the problem is, because community policing is the key.
Right.
Community policing, in the simplest terms, is police problem solving with the community, in the sense that the community people are the ones that have more access.
Right.
I mean, have more interest in the community. You know, our kids are going to school there, our property's there, our houses there, we're insured there, and we're paying their salary. You know, you got this testosterone thing going. When you get to be about a certain age, your voice starts getting deeper, you get little whiskers on your face. So your body releases this chemical called testosterone. Testosterone is a chemical that's greatly associated with below the belt, but it's underneath your heart and underneath your brain. So your brain and your heart needs to control your testosterone. Wait a minute, watch this now. I wasn't planning on this, but this just happened. Okay, somebody put on some elevator music. Okay, now watch this. Uncontrolled testosterone power is like this. Okay, now, there's no guidance on it, there was no control on it, there were no brakes on it. So if it crashes, it's going to crash and burn every time without some kind of control.
Good morning and welcome to our third annual forum on understanding and responding to mass incarceration. Again, thank you for being here. I'm very pleased to introduce Metropolitan University President Devinder Malhotra.
So good morning. And as you know, on behalf of all of the faculty, staff, and students, it's my absolute delight to welcome you to this third annual forum on understanding and responding to mass incarceration. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you John Choi.
Well, good morning, everybody, and thank you for that very kind introduction. That was way too long. You made me embarrassed. But it's really good to be here with all of you because I think this topic that all of us here are gathered to talk about is a really important one, and it's a really timely one. There are discussions happening all over this country and, of course, in our local communities about how we got to the point of how we have so many people in this country, and compared to any other country in the world, this country, ours, incarcerates more people per capita by far than anybody else. And so how is it that we got to this place? And I think that question really needs to be examined, but more importantly, I believe as community, as institutions like Metro State, we have to start doing things about that. And as a part of education, many of you in this room will be future individuals who will be part of the system. You will be exercising your discretion as a probation officer, as a police officer. And I think as you are seeking your education, I think it's very important to question this question, or this issue about mass incarceration, because I know I'm the chief prosecutor in Ramsey, and I will tell you that I am a part of the system.
I am so pleased that he's here with us today. It is my privilege to call him a friend. Pastor Danny, come on up.
Well, good morning. Y'all here? Good morning. Give yourself a round of applause for coming out this early to listen to a preacher give a keynote. Because people only go as far as their knowledge. At the age of 13, I was arrested for possession of crack cocaine. It would be another year later that I would go through my father's clothes that were in the attic of my mother's house because he had just got sentenced to a 10-year prison sentence in the feds for being indicted. I went through his clothes trying to get one of his jackets or something, and I found the firearm in his clothes. I was fascinated by this particular firearm. I could see it in my eyes right now. It was a chrome and with a gold pearl handle 25 automatic Raven. And having seen all of the images on TV, they say by the time the average 16-year-old in America reaches 16, he has already seen, or she has already seen, well over 250,000 violent images on some form of social media. And so the fascination with firearms was something that it was a notion, it was a thought insertion that was already placed inside of us because it was something that appeared to be synonymous with my skin and my culture and my lineage. It seemed like it was a rite of passage that I sold dope, that I had guns, that I did all these things because I hadn't seen anything else. When I was 18 years old, I and two other friends of mine had this wonderful idea that we would rob a local nightclub. Local nightclub was about 3 blocks from my mom's house. We had went down there, went to the front door to go in, and my friends was hesitant and they were scared. And I said, if y'all don't go in with me, it's gonna be a problem. We go in and immediately open fire. The place was packed, music was blaring. One of my friends shot the jukebox. Some people tried to get out this emergency exit. I began shooting in that direction and then ran back there to make sure nobody got out of the emergency exit. When I ran to the back where the emergency exit was, as soon as I turned, shots rang out. I shot the person first, and the person shot me in return. When I turned to see where my friends were, where were they? Where were my friends? They had an Uber, and Uber wasn't even out. So I cut through this little abandoned alley lot and threw my gun on the roof and took my mask off, and I laid down in the alley, and I prayed a prayer. Just, Father, forgive me. I'm sorry. Tell my mother I love her and I'm sorry. I knew I was dying. I knew my life was lost. At that moment, I heard a bunch of shots ring out. My friends that came back to the scene, I was able to notion to them where I was. They came back to the alley. They tried to pick me up, and I said, no, just take my coat off me. Tell my mother where I am. Tell her I love her and I'm sorry. Moments later, I almost blacked out before police had came and jumped on my chest and started pistol whipping me and told me, tell me who was with you. We're going to let your black ass die. I woke up handcuffed to a bed with tubes in my mouth and in my neck and my nose, and seeing my mother at my bedside. And I tried to talk and didn't realize that I couldn't talk, so I had requested some paper and a pencil, and I wrote, I love you, I'm sorry, please don't whoop me. I'm serious. I wasn't scared of what was going to happen so much as I was my mama, because she's the one. She's been the person who has held me down no matter what. And so she told me, she said, son, the police are going to come in and talk to you. She told me what happened. I cried and I didn't know what was going to happen. You know what my friends did? I mean, I don't even think they made an interrogation a good 15 seconds and they already gave them up everything, but that's the system for you. I ended up, after being in for 30 days, they offered me 60 years as a plea bargain for shooting the officer and another person and in the robbery. And they told me if I didn't take the deal, that they would give me 60 years plus 36 months for every person that was in the building. There was 85 people in there that night. You do the math. And so with that, I just began praying, and my grandmother told me, she said, read Psalm 35 every night. Read it every night. Prayed. By the time I got out of the hospital, they transported me down to Ramsey County Detention Center. I was sitting in the bullpen waiting to go to my cell, and I see this older gentleman, handsome, beautiful dark complexion skin, walking but kind of limping his way through the hallway. I'm sitting in my wheelchair in the bullpen, and I recognize the person. It's Lieutenant Art Blakey, the officer that I shot. I got 360 stitches on the inside, 80 staples on the outside. I got 2 entrance wounds, 1 exit wound. The 2 bullets made 13 different holes in the inside of me, and they threw me in a cell. I know I did something wrong, but you threw me in a cell without no attention. I was only in the hospital for 6 days. I couldn't get French toast. That may seem like something mild and insignificant to you, but that was a main course in there. And so the brothers that came in and was like, man, your food is out here. They finna take the trays. And I finally was like, man, I can't move. And this white guy came in and fed me, spoon-fed me my meal for almost 2 weeks until I could sit up on my own. The officers had no empathy for me or sympathy. It was a system that only saw me as a number.
Hi, I'm back. It's Jimmy's Rage. This episode will be dealing with mass incarceration, part 1. Help! I'm an American trapped. I have fallen and the justice system won't let me up. I can't vote. I can't get a job. I can't find a place to live. In some places, I can't get food stamps. How am I going to live? Help, I've fallen and I can't get up. I made a mistake and served my time, but this system prosecutes me all the rest of my life. Please send your donations to Justice for Americans. P.O. Box, One Nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all, in care of the people. What are the mental effects we are subjecting to our nation? Thank you. Back to you, Saran.
Greetings, and welcome back to another episode of Less Stress for You and I. I'm Saran, and this is Saran's Perspective. Today we're considering mass incarceration. Very few things has hit the chapter of American history with such ferocity. When I think of mass incarceration, I can't even get the word out. I think, of course, of the Reagan era, when they started doing the arms for, the Contra deal, where we armed the Sandinistas by flooding the streets with drugs. And then Mrs. Clinton came up with, I would call it a misnomer, but she came up with the term super predator. Before you know it, minorities found themselves in a world of crap. It comes down to where the same substance under different forms were treated differently. So powder, cocaine, was treated a lot lighter than crack cocaine. Crack cocaine was considered to be much worse than regular cocaine, but that's only because of the availability. Now, we find ourselves at the point where we've damaged our country so badly. I mean, the corporations have taken over, building jails, running jails, almost a privatization of the jail system. Ladies and gentlemen, we should not be making money off the backs of people that have been locked up. We have slave labor. I mean, they work, but they get pennies on the dollar. A lot of people complain about minimum wage. Well, those are slave wages. So slavery still actually exists in the form of our prison systems. Earlier, Jimmy came on with a very succinct Jimmy's Rage, where he said, basically, I've fallen and I can't get up. I thought it was very eloquent, so eloquent that I have to repeat it. Many people cannot get jobs, they can't vote, they can't get fair housing. How is this fair? How is that time served? Because the whole notion behind going to jail is you serve your time for the crime that you've committed, and then you're done. And you go back home to your family and recommence with your life. But this is not what's being afforded to us. As American citizens, we do have the right to make amends, and this is not being afforded us again. We are number one in the industrial country in only one aspect, and that is incarceration. I think this is about as close to a sin as you can possibly get. So let's take the greed out of this particular system, the criminal justice system. Let's find a little bit of more fairness to it. Let's live up to the American ideal of equal protection under the law, because that is the concept that made America great. Well, let me rephrase that. That can make America great, because we have yet to live to our full potential. Ladies and gentlemen, that is my perspective. I don't have a lot to say about it because it's so heartrending that I just can't allocate the words properly that I would wish to express. So, I thank you for your time. Write your local senator, your local congressman, and get it in their ears that, listen, we're not going to tolerate this noise anymore. We have the promise of the Constitution. It says, all, well, it says all men, but all people have the right to live equally. That concept made us the greatest country in the world. Not corporate greed, not mass incarceration, none of those aspects. Let's get back to what made America great. Thank you.
So when we look at this specifically, we have opportunities to create change, and we know how to do it. Don't take that excuse any longer. Literacy, we have proven literacy models. Mathematics, science, we have proven models. But will we use them, and will we invest in all children equally? That's a totally different question. Next up, definitely related to this education piece, is disrupting the school-to-prison pipeline. And let me make this come alive for you as well. Because once again, the myth is children of color tend to act out more in school. Children of color deserve harsher punishment because of their behavior. Children of color are in the schools with gang violence, guns, drugs, fighting all day long. Those are the myths, but guess what the Department of Justice was able to find for us through the Civil Rights Department? That the reality was that none of those things were true. In fact, more young people enter into the juvenile justice system as referrals from schools specifically for what? Typically the first thing is truancy. So that one I'm still riddled on. So I didn't go to school, and then I'm not going to go to school and then end up in juvenile detention. You can figure that one out for me. Shows we have some other issues to deal with. Peel back the layers. And the other one is in more subjective categories, like talking out and misbehaving. So I can tell you now I would have been in the school-to-prison pipeline. Thank goodness it didn't exist when I was a child, because talking too much, you can see with this mic in front of me, was a daily reality, okay? But one of my teachers, Dr. Grays, he got pretty wise. He said, oh, perfect, you love to talk, and you know the academic piece. He's like, I have a free TA. So I'm challenging you educators out there to get a little creative. He kept me occupied with doing what? Teaching, empowering other students. So in that way, the problem child, what else is going on? What are the other challenges? How many young people have I talked to that are acting out in school? I was like, what's going on? The two most common themes that I hear, they're sleepy and they're hungry. What? 3 out of 5 children go to school hungry. How can you learn if you're hungry? How can you learn if you're tired? So how do we get back to the basics? Just some other questions to think about. But going specifically back to the school-to-prison pipeline, I want to give you some truths about it. The first one is nearly 3.3 million children are suspended and referred out of the classroom annually in America. The second fact that you must know related to that, a single suspension does what? Doubles the odds of dropping out. And to put it in context, you're like 3.3 million children, what does that mean? That's enough children to fill every seat in every NFL stadium across the nation. That's a lot of children. And just a common sense approach. Because sometimes my grandma warned me, she was like, don't get all those degrees and just lose common sense, because common sense isn't too common. I was like, whoa, I can't even follow that riddle. It's like, I better study that one tonight. Common sense, if you're not in a classroom, there's a missed opportunity to learn. So we just have to talk about this in a practical way.